Hello everyone, welcome to Game Junk Prototype episode 48, recording on Friday, February 12th. And my name is Frank.
My name is Sean.
And my name's Andrew.
Is it important for a host to be consistent with how they introduce the show? Sometimes I say the year, sometimes I don't. I don't care. Let's start the show off a little different. Number one, let's mention some social media stuff and YouTube at the top of the show, because I always get it wrong at the end. No one's listening to the end anyway, so
now you can get it wrong at the beginning.
If you're listening, press stop right now. Go to youtube.com/GameJunk and, smash that subscribe, watch the videos, comment.
Yes, definitely.
Like it, like the video.
Like the videos, whatever people do.
Share the video.
Definitely don't share anything. But check it out. Twitter, My Angry Commute, Equilibrium Sis, and Film Junk, and Game Junk Podcast.
You got it. We do post the occasional news story on there.
It's true. Nice. Only the important ones, not these garbage, like science clickbait articles on IGN, like scientists say we're actually about to. They post these things all the time now. I'm like, what is this? This is nonsense. They just fuel their comment section. It's ridiculous. Anyway, another announcement. I want to mention that a friend of ours, Alex, at Pixel Not Games, and their whole team is launching a beta today for their new game Rocket Rumble on Steam. It's a closed beta. I know it opened today on Friday, and I don't know how long it's running for, but go check out that page on Steam. Check out the beta. It's kind of a party racing smash 'em up game that is pretty intriguing. So give it a look.
I think it runs all weekend.
Yeah, I think it's all weekend. Yeah, so check it out.
I like that name because, you're in there with Rocket League and what's the other one?
Rocket Arena.
I think when they were talking about names, or whenever we talk about game names with companies, I'm always like, Rise of the Shadow of the Rocket Rumble, or how all these names just use these same words to, they're marketing approved games and all this stuff. It's game titles on AAA games are the most dissatisfying thing in the world. But I like the name Rocket Rumble, and what I've played is good. It's been a while. I was playing some early prototype stuff, so I'll hopefully be checking it out this weekend. So give it a like, check it out. Maybe we'll talk about it in the future.
I can jump in with some news that just popped into my brain too about past guests. And Ryan Vandendyck from Eden Industries and his team launched a sort of like I guess it's a spin-off game of Citizens of Earth. It's called Citizens Unite. Oh, I better get the name right.
I thought it's Citizens Unite, and it's Citizens of Earth and Citizens of Space in one game, right?
Yeah. So, and then there's some mechanics where there's like cross-game integration where the two games kind of merge into one for certain aspects of it. So that is on sale, or not on sale. It's for sale now on, I think it's Steam, Switch, PS4, Xbox. I think it's kind of everything. I don't know if it's on the newest consoles. I don't know if it's on PS5 and Series X yet, but obviously those are, I think they're both cross-playable or whatever you call them. So just give a shout out there if anyone is interested in or miss Citizens of Space or miss Citizens of Earth, and might be a good place to jump in and kind of have both in one bundle. And there is a physical version, but I believe it's in Korea only. So if someone wants to go import-wise, you can get a physical copy with Ryan said he was going to send me one, so I'm pretty jacked up about that.
Nice. Well, very exclusive.
Get in there, support indie games.
That's right.
That one's for Jay. Anyway, our prayers were not answered. It was a very boring week in the world of video games, but we're going to juice it up here. We're going to talk about Nintendo announced, this is kind of news to me. Sean is just, kind of playing host here and relaying this information pre-show. the Nintendo Concierge Service, which we're going to talk about and basically launch into a discussion about, the state of consoles. Are things getting a little too confusing with backwards compatibility? This might be a case where even I must acknowledge advantage Xbox in this scenario, and we'll get into some stuff we've heard, or at least I've heard from other parents.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm a parent, from parents and other gamers about their issues. Even Jay has relayed some stuff to us. Like he's pissed. You think I'm pissed and I talk about debacles? He's fucking steaming.
Very angry.
So, Sean, you are the expert when it comes to the Nintendo Concierge Service. So please inform us what's going on here. What's this all about?
Well, based on the one article that I read right before the show, here's the deal. So they announced something called Nintendo Switch Concierge, and originally I thought it was just video tutorials for people who are maybe new to gaming or they haven't bought a new console in a long time and they need to understand how certain concepts work. It's not just a video tutorial, though. It's actually a one-on-one session that you can apply for, and you get to talk to a Nintendo rep, ask all the questions you have, and they'll help you out. And I guess...
Again, my perfect marriage, Apple and Nintendo. Apple does the same thing when you buy certain Apple devices. They email you. You can have your own private tutorial session.
It does feel like a very Apple thing to do. So they offer 6 different services under this. There's Nintendo Switch 101, games, what to play next, where I guess they can recommend you games based on other games you've liked or something like that. There's Nintendo Account, which I assume is more like focused on the online stuff. There's games getting started. I don't know if that's just how to play a game in general.
It says, so I'm looking at their actual website. It says how to purchase options, game card versus digital, and genres and wish list functionality.
Sounding like I should just start a business doing this. Like all I do is help people do this stuff anyway.
Exactly. And then security and privacy and customization are the other 2 things you can learn about. And so I saw this, and it kind of reminded me of something, because I had a friend who recently got a PS5, and he hadn't had a console in a while. And so he was constantly kind of asking me questions about things. And it just made me realize, if you're not into games and if you're not keeping up with things, how overwhelming and confusing things can be. Like, to start with, his son wanted to be able to play online. So he's like, okay, I guess I got to sign up for this PlayStation Plus thing. And I'm like, yes, unless it's a free-to-play game. But generally, yes. And then he goes online and he's like, okay, what's the difference between PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now? And I'm like, oh, geez. I'm like, okay, you don't want PlayStation Now. That's for old games streaming. And I'm like trying to explain this, and it's just a disaster. And then, he wanted to be able to buy the new NHL game. And so he was confused because there's no PS5 version for NHL 21. So I had to explain that the backwards compatibility thing. And then he was like, okay, so can we play online against each other? And I was like, well, I have it on Xbox. There's no crossplay currently between them. Then I started thinking, I was like, oh, well, you might want to look into EA Play, because, that's a great way to get all the EA sports games. But then I was like, oh, but it doesn't have the latest one available. It's only a demo or a trial of the latest one. And then he was just like, man, my head is exploding with all these subscription services and stuff. And I was just like, hey, I get it. It's insane.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, everyone claims I am a Sony fanboy. I just say which games are the best. That's it. That's all I do. And we see what happens. But I will say, when I have friends that are buying consoles, like, I recommend Game Pass. I used to recommend EA Play, and now I just say get Game Pass Ultimate. You'll have tons of stuff for your kids to play.
And EA Play.
And they, like, the other stuff is free that a lot of the kids play, like Fortnite, Rocket League, I think, is free now. So I think that's a great way to go for games. But I
Rocket's on
agree.
Game
Like,
Pass now?
no, it's free to play, I think.
Oh, okay.
I'm not 100% sure on that. That's what people are telling me. So that's why I was kind of relating to what Sean was saying, because I had other friends asking me about the Switch, and how the online membership works is kind of confusing. People don't even know that they get the Nintendo and Super Nintendo stuff, like all the stuff that comes along with it. And I'm trying to explain to them, oh, you have to go on and download this. There's a separate one for NES, a separate one for SNES, and how the online pass works. Like the family pass is almost necessary, I think. But if they have two Switches, which a lot of people do, one for each kid, that tends to work well. So all things considered, Nintendo is just raking in cash right now. It's out of control because everyone is buying a Switch for every kid in their house. And even if they're lights, it's crazy. But it is really confusing. And then getting into PlayStation. Now, the latest PlayStation firmware update apparently fixed issues of auto-downloading the wrong version. The last remaining issues where it would download your PS4 version and PS5 version. And that is a real thing. Like when I was just trying to download the PS5 version, and it was a pain in the ass. I downloaded the wrong one multiple times. If I wasn't worried about having a game on my profile with 0 trophies that I never played, I wouldn't have even looked into it. I would have just played whatever ended up on the console. But like, am I going to get this game with 0% on my record? I don't want that. I have to double check everything, especially if I'm worried about auto pop. But that's a whole nother world. We won't even get into that. But it is like, there's a lot going on. And I guess I'll bring up Jay's point that he was kind of wondering what is next gen at this point in some ways. Like all these games are giving you the choice of performance mode versus 4K. And that was kind of happening on the PlayStation Pro already. So like we've hit a next generation and it's like, why isn't both just a standard? Like what? I mean, I guess I like the flexibility of giving both options, but it seems like there's still some kind of trade-off that doesn't feel that next gen. So, things are just getting more and more complicated, and I guess it all stems out of the fact that console development is becoming more just like PC development and having different settings, basically. But yeah, it's not a great state for new people getting into gaming, I think, personally. It's more confusing than ever.
Yeah, and I mean, like, getting back to the PlayStation stuff for a second, like, PlayStation Plus, it's like, okay, so he's subscribed to that now, but now I'm thinking like, okay, like I'm trying to tell him, well, so you get free games with this too every month, but then like, now I have to explain how to go in and claim these games, and if you don't do it that month, you won't actually get them, and like that concept is just weird. And he's still going to an actual store to buy physical games because he doesn't really understand the digital download thing yet.
Sean, I hate to interrupt you. If he's going to stores to buy games, what's the first thing you tell him?
Don't buy games.
The ultimate advice you can give any person buying physical games in Canada: Shoppers, Drug Mart, Optimum Points. You gotta let people,
point, yeah.
Although maybe we shouldn't, because I think eventually they're gonna stop doing it on video games. But
yeah,
it's the best deal going. You have to let everyone know. And if they choose to not use that information and ignore what you tell them, that's up to them. But you've told them how to save money.
I mean, the only thing with that is not every Shoppers has games.
Right? Most do.
Well, there's the other way around is you go to like a No Frills or a Loblaws or a Zayres or whatever. You buy a Best Buy gift card with your Optimum points. Then you go to Best Buy and you use that gift card.
Yeah, that works.
But you're not getting points. You got to get the points. That's the key on 20 times point offers. You
still will get the points on. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, they have special deals on games? Point offers?
No, if you buy a game on a 20 times point day, you get like 30% back points. And then if you use that on a redeem weekend, it's worth like $50. It's ridiculous. You get free consoles like crazy. Anyway, I've talked about that enough. If you're in Canada and you're not using Shoppers Drug Mart to buy your video games physically, you got to change your game. You got to get
And
on.
if you're even smarter, you'll just get all your games out of the library and spend $0.
The ultimate system hack. But if you got to buy, make sure you do it in the right places. So I don't know. Was there anything else we needed to cover with this? I feel like we've just said a bunch of stuff, but we haven't really talked about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, to get back to the Nintendo thing, it probably sounds goofy to people who are into games, but I think it's actually a smart idea. And I think all of the like consoles should support something like this because people don't know what's going on, and it's hard. And to get back to the Microsoft side of things, so you kind of mentioned that Microsoft maybe has an edge because of Game Pass and things like that. But I mean, you're still dealing with, as we've said, the confusion of the naming of the consoles, and
Yep.
that's not great. And but then they do have the smart delivery thing, which is actually better than, solves the issue that Sony has currently, the confusion there. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say which. I mean, I guess
And then some games have it and don't, even on Xbox, right? Like Call of Duty. My friends bought the regular version and then eventually got Series X's, and there was no upgrade option. They kind of got screwed and had to buy 2 versions of the game. And if you didn't do your research ahead of time, like, I think they're counting on a lot of this stuff too. It's like, I hate to say they want the confusion so people buy more stuff and, aren't aware of the free stuff they can get. I'm sure part of the, like, I know they make it hard to get to PlayStation Plus games. I think that's undeniable. It's not like they auto download for you. It's like an unsubscribe thing for something like Audible or something like that, right? They start confusing messages. Are you sure you don't want to download this game for free this month? And they make it, it's not going that far, but we've all been in situations where we've unsubscribed or attempted to unsubscribe from something, and it's ridiculous. So I'm sure they're counting on that with their deals with some of these free games too, where it sounds great and then people don't actually follow through with it. It's like rebates, right? Same kind of thing. So yeah, it's we're obviously aware of almost everything. Like, I get it, but for someone who doesn't follow this stuff, I could definitely see it being a problem. And I have a lot of people asking me questions like, what's this? What's that? Especially around Christmas. What should I buy? What's the best thing? And
yeah, and I think Nintendo ultimately does, keep it simple for the most part. Like, you don't have to know, because they haven't invested so heavily in the online side of things. You kind of can just get by just buying the physical games, and that's all you need to know. But
just if anyone is planning on taking advantage of this offer, this concierge service by Nintendo, I'm just reading kind of the fine print, and it says that it's limited to 1 session per person, and also in order to participate, you have to have like recently purchased a Nintendo Switch system, but they don't specify what recently is. So who knows what that actual time frame is. And it does say sessions are limited availability. So you could never actually have a chance to get in on this service.
man, that job, it must suck having to do that and explain things to people. Because people just snap, like this is bullshit. I paid $400 for this thing.
well, this is like getting back to like the days of the game counselors, kind of, right? I mean,
I was gonna bring that up too, yeah. And getting your tips for games, which has been featured in, like, I think Console Wars and some other documentaries.
yeah. Oh, and also, it's only available in the United States currently. the
Oh, really?
concierge Service, apparently. So,
I guess I'm still in business then.
yeah.
But I do think that some simplifying could be done, and I have to give kudos when they're due. And smart delivery is really simple and pretty effective on Xbox, although non-Microsoft games like I think Call of Duty has some weird stuff, like in terms of like there's literally two versions and stuff like that. It's not as nice as some of the other smart delivery stuff, but
Yeah, I've lost some save data here, or not lost, but like it hasn't transferred over seamlessly between my PC and my Xbox every time.
the name branding is definitely an issue with those consoles.
Yeah.
They were so close to having like a definitive edge with that stuff, and they just messed it up a tiny little bit. All right, I think that's good for that, right? Anything else to add?
I think we covered it, yeah.
In general, like let's simplify these things. Let's take the Apple approach.
I mean, and a lot of people would say, who cares, right? Like hardcore gamers are like, I know how it works. Why do I care? But it's about expanding gaming, right? And it's like why the Wii was such a big hit. And, you know, the Switch is apparently catching up on the Wii now. Like the sales are continuing to surge. So,
again, it helps when you can sell multiple per house, or
yeah,
when it's mobile like that, kids drop them, break the screen. Nintendo knows what they're doing, believe me. 100%. But that reminded me, I've been trying to play some games on Steam, and there's always an issue. Like, I have this audio cutout issue on half of the games I play, and I'm not saying it's the game's fault. It might be something with my computer, but it's like, why do I even want to try this? There's always something to figure out. It's so annoying.
Well, this might be a good time to give a little update on your PC gaming situation there, Frank.
Currently, no progress. I just basically did a dual boot, which basically gives me a new hard drive, which is what I want. I just love a fresh start. Like, I could reformat. Did I talk about this, or was this pre or post show?
You've definitely mentioned this on the show.
On the show? I love reformatting. It's my favorite thing. But I do want to play Half-Life Alyx really bad. So it doesn't seem like the best time to be buying PC parts. And I think there's rumors or announcements that Intel has new processors coming. And I don't know. I'm just going to wait till supply is a little more reasonable. But I will do it at some point.
To play Half-Life Alyx, if that's your goal, you don't need top of line. Like, I'm running older stuff on mine, and it'll be streaming, right? So you won't need the high-end graphics card or all that stuff, right?
I need the best. Just that's how it works. Once I start, it's gonna be like, yeah, it's $50 more. This is $100 more.
Oh, it won't be $50 more. It'll
okay,
be
$1,000 more.
$300
Video
more.
card, whatever. I'm just like, who cares? I'm gonna be dead in 2 weeks. Spend the money. The other thing I wanted to mention. The new interface on PS5, I'm still having a tough time adjusting to it. Like the hold button versus tapping the home button.
Yeah.
It is.
I can't remember which things are on which of those menus, and so I'm always switching between them.
It looked great in that video, the state of play, but functionally, it's kind of whack. I'm not digging it.
Yeah, I also get confused when, like, if I'm trying to search for something in the store or in my library, like, it's kind of unclear where you're supposed to go for those things. You know what I mean? Like, I always seem to get confused. I'll go to the search, and then it'll I don't know. I don't know which one I'm getting. So I don't know if I'm just dumb, but I do find it confusing.
Yeah, I haven't had too many issues with that because I think there's some, using the L1 and R1, there's some nice filters for library versus store or purchases, I think, or downloaded versus purchases. But it's not great. And it just seems like one of those things where, you know, people want the console anyway. The store sucks now, especially the web browser version of the store. And it's like, well, if they want something, they're going to buy it. I'm sure it's having an impact for like random buys, which I don't know how much of I do that. Like, I go in the store and I search for stuff that's on sale, and there's still kind of ways to do that, but it's not great. And they probably are just like, well, as long as it works, people are still buying stuff. I think there was a news article that now video gaming industry is bigger than movies and music combined now. So, and there was like a 27% increase last year. So,
wow.
I don't know. It's still huge.
Yep.
People will buy.
Bye, bye, bye.
All right, bye to that news topic, and let's move on to some techgasms. Huck is just dying to talk about this topic.
Techgasming all over.
Stop talking about it. Epic announced, or the Unreal Engine. Is it actually Unreal Engine? It's kind of branded as its own thing. MetaHuman.
Yeah, it's like a feature of the Unreal Engine,
which is a web browser a browser-based technology, at least in its current form that it was showed off in, where you can generate and alter human characters, almost like an infinite character creator, right? That is generating very high quality models that are rigged and ready to go for motion capture, reuse of animations. I don't know if either of you have ever used Mixamo before.
Yes,
that was like Adobe's. It's nothing like this, but it's like a free place for models that use kind of standard rigs, and you can get free animations and stuff like that. Now, I don't think this is free or anything like that. I don't know much about.
I think it's going to come with the Unreal Engine license.
Yeah.
So if you ship a game, you'll have to pay premium. But Adobe did have something similar to this called Fuse, which they phased out, I believe. Vince looked it up for me. I think it was like September 2020 or something. So it just kind of got phased out of their Creative Cloud license thing. But so it basically does this. You're able to pick like a base sort of like model and then make tweaks to it based on, facial features, skin color, eye color, hair type, hair color, blah, 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 muscle definition, all that stuff. Now, that was a cool tech, and I used it actually to create a lot of NPCs for prototypes I would do just to get variety, and it was handy. And then I used Mixamo to get animations, and it was great. But those models were nothing compared to what is in this MetaHumans demo. Like if you watch, I was like scouring the subreddit for Unreal Engine, and people are like posting stuff they've done with this sample, and like they're moving the light around and like zooming in super close on their eyes, and like individual like eyelash hairs are lit properly, and like just crazy like depth in the shadows and everything. And I know from reading some of the tech docs, like this is meant to run on newer graphics cards with like ray traced shadows and everything. So it is not like what you're seeing is high-end ray traced real-time stuff that is really impressive. I also saw a video. You can connect to this thing called Live Link. I don't know if you've heard of this thing, but essentially it uses your phone's camera to capture your face, and then it somehow is able to map like all your facial features and map it onto a digital avatar. So I was able to see a video of some guy using this Live Link app to actually move these characters around. And other than like little things that are off, like I noticed mostly around like the lip and mouth area, but the eyes, eyebrows, hair all looks incredible. Even using this, real-time and analysis data that's coming through, like essentially real-time mocapping, just like really, really impressive. And I'm a little jealous that I mostly use Unity. I'm jealous of the Unreal Engine users that
I haven't used Unreal in a long time, but it seems like the gap was closing. I haven't done a lot of research lately, but like Unity, to me, like they've announced a lot of their data-oriented tech stack and entity component system, and it feels like it's not that intuitive, and like it's kind of rolling out a lot slower than I anticipated. I know people have been waiting for their networking solutions for a long time, and I don't know, it feels like Unreal is really starting to pull ahead over the last year and a half or so. Now, Unity's still doing fine. Like, I think they went public, and it's doing quite well. So I still love Unity. But I don't know. I hear you that it's making me want to look into doing stuff in Unreal again.
So, I'm working on an Unreal project right now that is obviously not going to use this stuff, but it is definitely intimidating to jump back in to Unreal after using Unity. Unity is very easy to get up and running, prototyping something, and Unreal almost seems just like this monolith that you try to jump into, and it really is. But just the ease of use of Unity is definitely an interesting factor to it. Now, I think what's happened is, I think you're right where like Unity and Unreal, the gap was closing, and I actually think Unreal noticed it, because Unity started coming out with the high definition render pipeline and a lot of other interesting stuff, which really closed the tech gap. And I think the tech gap is actually a lot closer. But now Unreal has gone out and they purchased like the Quixel Megascan people, which does all this like PBR environment, which is like physically based rendering rocks, which look incredible in next gen systems. They just bought, I think, 2 companies to essentially make this human thing. So they are stepping up the content creation ability of their users to an insane level of ease of use. I mean, this is not going to phase out character artists, because games are always going to want custom stuff.
Exactly. I was going to bring that up in a second.
That is like, like a special dragon or whatever.
Well, just that's how games define their art style, right? Like they change proportions. They like, not everything is photorealistic. I actually, if you tried to look at, the current state of games, I would be curious what percentage of them actually use photorealistic humans. And I bet it's something like, my guess would be 15% or something.
Less, way less.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought it would be like only first party Sony games.
Even those have clearly defined art styles, like the shaders and the animations in The Last of Us Part 2 I talked about are like kind of cartoony in some ways. They are not exactly photorealistic like the world is, but there's a definite art style stamp and art direction in all those games. So I don't know much about this creator. I'm wondering if there are kind of plugins or ways to kind of hijack the system and add your own shaders or tweak general settings to everything based on your art styles and stuff like that. I mean, I have no idea, but I'm assuming that would be a feature a lot of games would want. I'm assuming this applies mostly to open world games where the annoyance of modeling, as many possible NPCs characters as possible. I'm assuming there's a random element to this as well too, where you can kind of get a lot of cool random characters possibly at runtime. I don't know, but it is like you said, just a general progression to, user generated content happening so quickly. Like even something like Substance, right?
Not even user though. Like you're not user in like.
Oh yeah, sorry, not writer, like
content creator.
Yes,
like
sorry,
game
yes.
maker.
Or eliminating the need for, needing a highly specialized person for everything, or a bunch of those, right? And kind of, having a solution that would work for a team that's primarily coders, or the opposite, a team that's primarily artists. Unity feels like an engine that's set up for people who are primarily artists versus coders, right? Where I would say Unreal's the opposite.
Yes.
Yeah, it is like, who knows where it's going to be in 10, 20 years, right? Like it's going to be absolutely crazy.
And also, like, this kind of tech is required if games are going to be affordable to make in the future, because like you cannot just have like Ubisoft sized teams for every game that's made. Like you cannot have 2,000 people for 3 years and pay them and have enough money to actually live off of after. And, like it's like indie games that do 2D are fine and they're pretty small scope. And a lot of them are, randomly generated. So the amount of content you have to create is less in theory. And then you have kind of like building blocks. Whereas if you're making a game, like, if you're a small indie studio and you want to make a game similar to Spider-Man or similar to something 3D, like it's going to be impossible to compare to any of these studios that have, 500 to 2,000 people just throwing tons and tons of content at the board. So the only way that indie creators or even small teams of like, let's say 30 to 40 people are going to be able to keep up is with tech like this that lets you kind of bridge that gap and cut down on your costs and and take the cost of making a character from like a few $1,000s each to like a few $100s each. It's the only way that, you know, games are going to progress. And even like you see interviews with, you know, the head Sony and Microsoft guys just saying like the cost of games is getting too expensive, and everyone's talking about now, you know, doing, you know, bigger titles, but less people, longer time frames to try to cut down on, you know, this massive scale. I think even Ubisoft recently announced that they're going to definitely step back from Assassin's Creed, not do yearly for sure anymore. They're going to do like every other year or possibly longer. So even they're obviously seeing like just pumping games out at that rate with that amount of content is just not sustainable.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and they had mentioned before in the Unreal 5 demo or video, that live stream, that the ability to take movie assets and stuff like that and pull them right into Unreal. So they're clearly focused on, you know, being able to generate or get art assets very quickly. And I think it is, like you said, the scalability of games is going to be impossible without tools and techniques like this, right? So anyway, I don't know how much like big studios will actually use this. It feels more like mid-level or indie studios that could take advantage, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is like it feels like it's more aiming to maybe steal some of the Unity people over to Unreal. But I mean, do you guys think that having a tool like this available could change? Like, could we see a rise in the amount of games that are doing photorealistic characters because it's so easy? And would that be good for the industry? Like, you know, if all, like, I guess photorealism is, you know, you could say there's no style to it, but there is a style, and you're going to notice like characters all kind of looking the same if they all come from this tool, right?
Yeah, I would see it for peripheral characters filling up a world. I still think the number one way games stand out is through their art style. Like that is, especially indie games, like without an amazing art style, it is hard to get exposure, I would say. Yeah. So I don't know if it's going to move the needle that much in that way, but I could be wrong. I generally don't love photorealistic games anyway. Like, they're impressive, but I don't know if it necessarily pulls me into it or makes me want to buy them. There's usually some art element on top of that that is defining the look of the game or making it intriguing.
Yeah.
Nice. We rocked that topic. Amazing.
Huge.
Yeah. Especially since you thought it was going to be like 1 minute.
Look, I told you I could turn anything to an hour of content. I'm a storyteller. So let's get into what we played. Anyone want to go first? Sean, you've been teasing this World of Horror game, so...
Yeah, I can talk... Well, okay, I got a couple things. I'll start with World of Horror since you mentioned it. And it is leaving... It was on Game Pass for PC, and it is leaving as of the 15th. So if you're interested in trying it out, you got to hurry. But it's in early access, and, you know, it's still around if you want to play it on Steam, obviously. So this game came up, I think, when we were talking about roguelikes and roguelites a while back. And Frank, you had stumbled across it somehow and thought it was, you know, up my alley, which I kind of agreed with. I mean, so what it kind of looks like, so it's a black and white game. I guess you would call it a 1-bit game. You can actually customize the colors a little bit. You can choose 1-bit or 2-bit, and you can, if you don't want black and white, you can make it other colors instead. But it is a horror game that is kind of like a point-and-click adventure RPG. And the closest comparison I can think of was Shadowgate. It's kind of in that vein. I
was getting Snatcher vibes a bit, too.
Never played Snatcher, so I can't speak to that. But it's...
I
so
would
I only
love Snatcher. You would love it.
Yeah, I probably, yeah. But I played about 20 minutes of this game. You know, I was playing it right before the show started, and had time for. So it is a roguelite, light or like, I'm not sure. I don't know if anything carries over. I haven't gotten far enough to really tell. But so the idea is that there's different mysteries you have to investigate, and the one that I did 2 runs of was this high school, haunted high school kind of thing, and it seemed to be sort of Lovecraftian. And I just explored the school, found a weapon. The combat is turn-based, but you can kind of queue up a series of attacks. Like you have like a meter of how many attacks you can do per turn, and you can choose the order of them. And other than that, it's just kind of exploring and enjoying the story, I guess. And for me personally, just based on what I played, I was kind of like, I would like this game more if it was just a straight up adventure game. I don't know that the roguelike elements are working as well for a game like this, but maybe I'm not seeing sort of what, because it does seem
You
to
did 2
change
runs
a little bit.
basically, all right? Sounds like?
I did 2 runs, and there were some differences. So it seems like each time through, you know, you're fighting different enemies. The story can kind of change a bit, and yeah, I don't really know. You know, obviously just scratch the surface of this thing, but it was pretty cool. I like the music and I like the atmosphere. Check it out if you're at all interested in what I just said.
World of Horror. Thank you, Sean.
I can go
Hawk,
next.
anything for you?
I played just a little bit more of Cyberpunk 2077. Got to Act 1. That's how little I've played. So, but I had a weird thing happen, which I thought I recalled Dwight saying this happened to him too, but I got to the start of Act 1. Essentially, you're in your apartment, and then you need to leave your apartment and go to like some doctor's place. So I walk out and I get to the first kind of like staircase out of my building, and I see this cop talking to these 2 people on a staircase. So I'm looking at him, and he's got like some sort of bubble above his head, which they haven't explained yet, so I have no idea what it means. So I walk up to him, and I'm trying to like talk to him or do anything, trying to figure out what this bubble means. I thought maybe it was a side quest. All of a sudden he says like, "Get the fuck out of here," or something like that. I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm just standing here." So I keep standing there. And then all of a sudden he's just like, "You've been fined," or something like that. I'm like, "What?" And then all of a sudden he starts shooting at me. So then I run away up back into my building. And then there's 2 other guys up there, totally unrelated. They start shooting at me, and then I die. I'm like, what the hell just happened? I have no clue. I restart. I ran past that cop, and then I went on my way. But like, there is, to this point, there is a lot of stuff in this game that they throw at you right away, and you have no idea what it is. Like, I think you guys were talking about, there's just so much stuff to pick up off the ground. And, you know, I'm picking up like 25 ashtrays, picking up like hypo something. I'm not taking the time to like read.
I pick up so many different alcohols and liquids, and I'm like,
yeah, booze,
I don't even have time to see which one does what. I don't care.
Yeah. I have like, by the end of the first mission there, I had $1,000 of junk. I had 19 hypo sprays or whatever. I never even knew I picked these things up because I'm just going through and picking up anything I can. And I'm getting all these like, what were they called? Scraps or snips or whatever those things
Shards.
are. Shards. Getting shards. Now I opened the first couple, and when they were each like 3 paragraphs long, I'm like, what is this?
I definitely said that after the second one.
I know you did.
Like,
why? I can't even imagine this was someone's job to write this boring ass shit in this game. And like, there is so much. I mean, that was the first tiny little apartment, and I picked up probably 4 or 5 of these things. And I'm sure there's some achievement for like finding all the shards.
Thank God.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so.
But I mean, I understand the idea of trying to like flesh out the world, but could you not be a little more concise and still get the same point across? I don't need to read 10 paragraphs on like how the guy got an email from his buddy, and his buddy was pissed that he like ate his soup or something. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, I still like the games that do the audio logs, like
Love audio logs.
BioShock
was the
and
first. BioShock collectible audio world building was the greatest.
yeah, still the way to go.
It is nice because you can leave and do things without having to like stand there and read, which is why I also love audiobooks, like real life audio logs. But so I didn't get very far. I played a little bit more. I kind of started, I guess what you would probably consider the main like next task, where I went on the limo ride with I guess probably the main quest giver in the game, and he kind of says do one of these 2 missions, and that's basically where I stopped. I kind of got there. So there is still, I'm sure, tons of game to play, but overall, the combat was fine. I didn't really get blown away by the gun mechanics. I actually found them a little clunky almost. And then that was about it. I only got that one little section. I mean, the world they're building with like all the cyberpunk stuff is cool. Like all this like high society, low society type environments they're contrasting, especially in that first mission, is really neat. And I can see why like the world itself is extremely interesting. But right now the game hasn't really hooked me with its story either. It's just kind of giving you some fetch questy type stuff to do so far, and I haven't really gotten it hasn't gotten its hooks into me as to why I want to like keep going down this story. Other than that, I need to make money for some reason.
Yeah. Well, just wait till you get to Keanu. Once you get to that point,
True.
you're in. So
Okay, I'll keep playing then.
But yeah, the junk that you pick up, it's not important. Like, it's only important if you want to use it to make money. At a certain point, you're just going to start picking up the things that are like green, blue, and purple. Other than that, just ignore it.
There's an auto salvage option in the skill trees you can get pretty early too, for at least the junk.
Yeah. I also like just the amount of menus, and I think you guys mentioned it, just like the obvious not made for consoles of the UI is kind of frustrating at times, that you have to kind of move this clunky mouse cursor around.
Let's get into it. I'm going to use that as a segue to Immortals Fenyx. What's it called?
Yeah.
Fenyx Rising.
Is Fenyx Rising? It's that obvious? Okay. that sounds way too generic. This started with Destiny that I can remember first. Menus on consoles that are basically mouse cursors, where you have to hover over things and move it around, and I absolutely hate them. It is the worst trend in console gaming. They suck. They are annoying to navigate. The map in Neo 2 is doing this too, where like it moves so fast it's almost impossible to navigate it properly. Stop doing this. Like, I don't know if it's just easy to do because they're shipping it on PC at the same time. Please stop. It's the worst. It's the worst trend in gaming, hands down. Sorry, I have to be bold. I have to say this in the most bold way possible. But
So bold.
I don't know if you guys agree with that statement.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, I don't know if it's the worst trend, but it's pretty bad.
Well, what's worse, Sean?
I haven't given it much thought, Frank. I'll have to get back to you on that.
I think it's up there.
Okay.
So I played not much, but maybe an hour and a half of Immortals. And is Immortals. I am finding it kind of fun. I think it's pretty neat. It's obvious. Like, I know it's supposed to be a Zelda clone, or Breath of the Wild clone, I should say. I had no idea how blatant it was in ripping off every system, like the climbing, I'm just getting into their equivalent of stasis powers and all this stuff. Like, it is unabashed and in its shamelessness of copying Breath of the Wild. But I have to say, it's more fun than Breath of the Wild. Like, they've taken all the things that bother me about Breath of the Wild and basically fixed them. The world is much more condensed. Movement is faster. There's like a nice dash run that gets unlocked. Climbing is less cumbersome. Like, it takes less time. The biggest problem with Breath of the Wild to me is how long it takes to get from place to place. I think they've improved the first person searching in Zelda. I think Zelda uses the scale of the world to great effect. Like when you get to the top of a tower and you can see in the distance and see shrines, I think that's amazing and kind of tag them. But it's not necessarily fun. It's a cool system, but this has definitely made it easier to do that. And, there's a lot more stuff to find, which, makes traversing the map with things you found. Another trend I'm not a fan of that is in the category of user interface is compass maps, or like rather than an actual like 2D map. So it's just like a heading at the top of the screen that rotates, basically the old Bethesda maps. I hate those maps. I just give me a traditional Grand Theft Auto style mini map in the corner. I hate compass maps. They're the worst.
Why do you hate them? I actually like them.
Oh, I can't stand them. I want to know what's behind me. I don't want to have to check the map to see how much in the opposite direction or like general direction I need to go behind me to find something. Like,
oh, okay. So you want it for distance.
For everything.
Just direction.
Obviously, it's personal preference, but God of War had that too. I didn't like it in God of War. I don't know. I just feel like maps weren't broken, and they've tried to reinvent them too. And it's like, why? What was wrong with the way they were? Like, nothing. Anyway, it's more fun. It's definitely a little janky in some ways. Like, as soon as I started playing, I was getting caught on collisions pretty easily, and the jump animation is really bad. Like, it's like just almost non-existent, the animation, and I think that's because they had a double jump very quickly, and it looks better once you get the double jump. But it feels like a slightly lower tier budget-wise, which is to be expected, but I don't dislike the presentation that Sean thought I might hate with the storytelling and stuff like that. I think it's generally good. I like the art style, and I wish actually they were less beholden to Breath of the Wild. I think the game would be improved by, I think throwing is kind of awkward. Making throwing rocks like a stasis power is not that intuitive and has some issues, but overall, I think I will return to it, but I'm still playing Neo 2 here and there, and it is impossible to mix a shoulder button combat game with a face button combat game. Cannot be done. So, yeah. Sorry, Immortals, you're going to have to wait till I'm done with face buttons. So thanks to everyone again for reinventing controls. We really needed that. I guess I should thank Dark Souls. Also a trend I'm not a fan of. And in general, that is my biggest pet peeve with games. And it's the prestige games like these Zeldas, Metal Gear Solids that feel that they get to reinvent controls. We're our own thing. We came up with this. We will always have unintuitive controls when every game kind of has the same control scheme. Nope. We're Metal Gear. We're Zelda. We do whatever we want. Fuck everyone else. You relearn how to play our game when it's ready. Even though everything else makes more sense and is much more natural, too bad. I hate that as well. And that was one of my problems with Red Dead. I felt like I'm relearning how to play video games. And unless that's the only game I'm playing, I'm not that interested. Anyway, I've identified a lot of trends I really dislike in games.
Some good pet peeves there, yeah. I am contemplating a return to Red Dead. I've mentioned that to you, I believe, Frank.
Well, you should be, but the game you should be playing does begin with RE. Just messed up the rest of the letters.
But the thing is, though, I agree with what you just said. I think with Red Dead, you really have to commit, and you cannot be dabbling in it. So.
I was about to say, Sean, we're dabblers. You had 54 games on PlayStation. I had 56. Like, you can't be jumping from game to game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a problem. Okay, so I'll just mention I also played, I returned to Journey to the Savage Planet, and I basically finished the game. I'm at the final boss now. I don't know if I'm the only one here who, when you get frustrated at a final boss, at a certain point just kind of feels like, do I need to go back to this? Like, I've seen everything the game has to offer. So I'm not sure. I'm feeling like I'm going to give it another shot, but I was trying to beat it last night and was getting frustrated. So
The only time I've ever given up on a final boss was temporarily for Sekiro. I'm like, I literally spent 2 days trying to beat the final boss, and I'm not giving up. I am not quitting on this game.
That's not
Indivisible.
true. Yeah, I was
What?
just gonna say. I was
Oh.
just gonna say that's not true. Indivisible. You just talked
But
about
I finished it that night. Like it's
Oh,
not
did
like
you? Oh, okay.
yeah, it's not like I gave up. I'm like, I'm beating this fucking thing tonight. And the same
What
with
about Battletoads?
I don't
What about
remember.
Battletoads for the NES.
Did not make it past the speeder
Exactly.
bike stage.
Exactly.
yeah.
The another game like that, even though this is my own fault. So Resident Evil 3, the final boss in that, when I was trying to platinum it, basically I used I pay for play with like using rocket launchers to beat the whole game or something like that. And then you get to the final boss and you have to literally be perfect with their dodge mechanic. And I'm like, I'm never going to beat this. I would have to start doing this. Eventually I push through. I'm a gamer. I get it done by the end of the day. If you've created a game and a challenge that other people have done, I will achieve it. It just is a matter of time. Although I'm getting a little too cocky because Street Fighter, I will never get good at. Like other people who are good at fighting games, I just don't have the reflexes or reaction time.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, the other thing with the Journey to the Savage Planet is like, so it's a game where, and I think I mentioned this previously, when you die, you kind of go back to your ship and they recreate a new version of you. So it's not like you go back to a checkpoint. I mean, sometimes that's close to where you died. Like they try to put these teleporters near the bosses and stuff, but you still end up having to you're on the ship, you got to walk downstairs, go into the teleporter, jump into the teleporter, walk back, and it gets annoying after a while. But with the final boss, they change it so that you actually do restart from a checkpoint. So if I wanted to go back into sort of the open world, like it's kind of like a Metroidvania style game. If I wanted to try and get some more power-ups and get more health, I can't do that now. I'm stuck. So that kind of sucks. But generally, I would say if you are a fan of the Metroid Prime series, you should check this game out because it's very heavily inspired by it, but just has a kind of goofy sense of humor. It's a bit shorter.
I played it not quite a bit, definitely 4 or 5 hours, and it was pretty good. I just found that polish level wasn't there. Like I found some of the design mechanics a little unintuitive and a little unpolished, and certain enemies, I remember this kind of enemy with an eyeball that would follow you and it just felt a little broken. I don't know. It's like a 7.5 game, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a smaller team developed it, and it has a bit of that feel. Like my biggest complaint is the gun. I always thought the gun would eventually kind of power up and feel more satisfying. It never does. It always feels like a little pop gun. You're shooting balls at something, and even when I've leveled up the reload time, I'm not at I think there's 3 levels to it. So I'm not at number 3 yet. I'm at number 2, but it's still the reload time is so long in that game. It's annoying.
Yeah, I remember that. Like every game, if you're making a shooter, just steal everything from Call of Duty. Steal all the feedback, the sounds, the vibration. If you want your fire to be satisfying, you've got the template. Just copy it. Do your game's version of that. I don't understand why games don't do that. It's been perfected. You can, and it doesn't have to be a war game. It's about the vibration and the impacts and sounds. It just feels perfect. Just copy it. It's so easy. Anyone else have anything? We're hitting that hour mark. Well, we got all of our plugs out of the way at the beginning, so nothing left to do but wrap it up. Let's hope there's something interesting to talk about next week, although I hope you found this week's episode interesting. I had a lot more fun than I thought I was going to have, but I could talk shit about games all day, every day. I am not short of opinions. But thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.